Hi, friends. Well, I came across another Sadhguru anecdote or story that kind of resonated with me, and it wasn't so much that it defines a struggle. I'll tell you the story in a minute. It defines a struggle, and it's not something that I would say is a current struggle in my life, but it's kind of something that sheds some light or that gives just a nice perspective on my experience of inner work and spiritual practice over the course of my whole life so far. And basically, he tells this story of four yogis, one of whom is a karma yogi. So it's defined as the yoga of action. Then there's the energy yogi, whose practice revolves around working with energy. Then I can't remember all the Hindu names. Then there's the devotional yogi, the yoga of devotion, which I think is bhakti yoga, but it's the yoga of recognizing the spirit, the presence of the divine in everything. And then there's the yoga of the intellect, of intellectual wisdom, contemplation, philosophy. And these four yogis each have total contempt and disregard for each other. None of them think any of the other practices are worth anything, because the karma yogi is like, well, action is the only way that anything ever changes in the world. So without action, you've got nothing. The energy yogi is going, well, if you're not working with energy, it doesn't matter how much action you take or how wise you are or how devoted you are. If you're not working with your energy, none of it's actually going to change you. Yoga of devotion yogi is like, well, without the presence of God, none of it means anything. How can you even have a practice that isn't inherently about this relationship to something greater? And the philosopher yogi, the yoga of the intellect, is so much don't all these people see that they're just playing little mind games with themselves? If you don't really understand, if you don't make an effort to understand the universe around you, the world around you, then how can you possibly be gaining any wisdom? So all of them, don't have time for each other. And they're walking in a rainstorm, or they're walking somewhere on the road and a rainstorm blows through, and they try all these various ways of getting to safety, and none of them work. Each of them sort of has their shtick that they try, and it doesn't work. And then at the end of it, they all end up surrounding this statue and like hugging this. The only way that they can ultimately stay safe is by hugging each other and this shrine, I think. So they all end up embracing, and then the god Shiva comes out and says, finally, it's only in a moment of total abject despair that you four idiots get together. And that's what brings me, that's what allows me to arrive. So it's a metaphor for the enlightenment journey, and that each of these aspects of our practice, of our psyche, or of our being, have to be united in order for actual enlightenment to occur. And the reason why I love this story is because I can totally see myself at various points in my life feeling the way that each of these yogis kind of felt, There's certainly, when I was in my philosopher yogi phase, there's a sense of we're so activated intellectually that if anytime we're not encountering that, things are kind of boring, because that's so tantalizing. I don't know that I've had a phase for every yogi, but certainly I've had an energy practice, a qigong practice, for not my whole life, but a good, going on 17, 18 years now. Not a short time. Yoga of devotion, witnessing the divine, being completely consumed by that experience, and having it kind of supersede all other practices, all other experiences. And karma yoga, that's when I feel like I'm beginning to get, I did a post on this recently, I feel like I'm just beginning to get my, for that to kind of land as an experienced practice, that, because again, intellectually it's easy to understand what karma yoga is. It's any action we take anytime is yoga. So any action we take is a practice, and anything we're doing, we want to be conscious of it, and it's a way of, for me, reminding ourselves that all of our life is a practice, and that there is no moment in which the principles of yoga don't apply. There's no time when the way in which we approach the world from a meditative, conscious place, with a poise and a wakefulness, kind of leaning in, what our yoga practice, what our physical yoga practice demands of us, framing every moment of our experience like that, and really understanding that karma yoga is a real thing. It's a real, it means every single action we take, every single circumstance we encounter, every single relationship, all of them are opportunities for that, for practice. But I love that the story unites these, because again, in my experience, I've had the experience of each of them individually expiring of promise, because I could tell they weren't going to culminate. There was no culmination taking place within the narrow track of that practice. At the same time, life goes on. We reflect on both what we learned in the past and also what those practices continue to contribute to our lives. And it's like, well, there's no practice without that. There's certainly no enlightened life without these. So do I need to give myself to them more? There's a kind of the notion of this kind of beautiful unity among them, or at least a harmony among them. Maybe not a unity, but a harmony in our life where they can each have a place, is big for me, and it's actually helping me work with even some things on other levels in my life, like how piano fits into my life, and how as a practice, where it belongs in the kind of tapestry of what's important to me, and how I grow this notion that each of these levels of our awareness has a place, and that place is also partial. It's not everything, When I am speak for myself, I suspect there may be some of you out there who also experience this, but when I go to define my identity, as I was saying in my previous post, mistakenly define my identity, I'm looking for something that does the trick. It's like a one size fits all. I want to be able to put that identity hat on and be that, because that is nice and convenient, and it answers the questions, and it dispatches with the doubts. And it obviously never works. It doesn't, there is no such thing. It's always an illusion. It's always a hat that I think it turns out it's not a hat, or it turns out it's facing the other way, or I don't know what the hat metaphor is, but it doesn't work to define our identity in that way. And yet, maintaining connection with these parts of my self, with these different practices, is huge. It makes it possible to keep moving, to keep, even with setbacks, even with disappointment, even with an existential crisis, it allows us to know movement is happening. I'm marching forward, sometimes sailing, flying, other times kind of trudging, but moving. And allowing that to be, allowing myself to pick up the tool that I need at a given time. So I love the story, and it was speaking to me, so I thought I would share it. Anyway, have a lovely day. Happy Labor Day. Appreciate you. Much love. I'll see you tomorrow.